Okay. Good evening, Holliston, and welcome to the March 26th meeting of the Holliston School Committee. Call things to order. I think we're going to start with a public hearing on the FY27 budget. I guess I make a motion to, or do we have to make a motion to open the public meeting?
So moved.
Second?
By John. Second by John.
All in favor?
Should be a roll call on it.
Oh, okay.
We can go through this quickly. I don't know if anyone is here for the budget hearing, but obviously this is the opportunity for people to provide feedback, comments on our budget requests. We're presenting to the Finance Committee next Tuesday. So going through things quickly, and I think the news overall is that our level service budget is meeting the commitment we made to the town during the override in 2024 at 3.25%. We do have some additional asks that take us up to the 3.61. That is what we are requesting as our official budget request now, but those are priority needs for different additional needs of the district. If we look, just quickly, part of the problem the town and the district are facing is continued underfunding of Chapter 70, which is the state aid for school districts. The governor's budget this year is for a 2% increase in our state aid, which is versus a 3.4%, I think, is what Chapter 70 as a whole is going up. So we're getting sort of less than the average district. On the other hand, some other surrounding towns are getting even less than us, which is sort of shocking. But the main takeaway there is that adjusted for a bump we saw from full-day kindergarten when we implemented that in fiscal year 2023, our Chapter 70 is going up at 2.1% per year, whereas the district's budget is going up at 3.6%. So the town is having to increase its support at a faster rate, and that's sort of shown here by a decline in the amount that Chapter 70 is supporting the budget from 24% down to almost 21%, sort of based on the governor's budget for next year. Just quickly, we had a headwind for a while in school choice numbers. It had been, sort of essentially taking budget away. We've moved back in the other direction, and so in the last 3 years, we've actually had a $300,000 improvement or so in our net school choice numbers. And we're also seeing a decline in sending students, which is a really good sign, while we continue to accept more students. Looking at our enrollment, we are projecting, or Dr. Jordan is projecting a modest decline next year, but I think it's important to note that this is also before we look at school choice numbers. So I would think it's going to be probably flat, more flat by the time we're kind of done at the end of the year. But there is definitely an underlying enrollment sort of pressure, I would say, and I think a lot of that has to do with just general housing market, starter homes, because you're seeing that in many districts and districts that many of us would probably consider to be much higher or higher performing districts. So it is not unique to Holliston. I don't think it's a reflection of our public schools. So getting to the operating budget, through the process, this is obviously a multi-month process beginning last November. We worked with Dr. Kuska, Dr. Jordan, Budget Committee, met many times, and a lot of work went into closing the budget. There was we were initially at a 5% level service budget, so to get down to 3.25%. But we are with a level service budget of $45,814,162, and with an actual budget request of $45,972,162, which includes $158,000 priority needs. This is just kind of the walk with numbers, talking about how we were able to make the reductions. We had retirements that weren't built in. We had some mid-year resignations, other favorability, and then we did have 3 position eliminations. One from the elementary school that was filled through a known retirement, and then 2 non-classroom positions at the high school. Just kind of the biggest drivers of the budget. This is also on the website. We emailed it out to the community, so if people are looking to spend more time with it, I can do that. I think it's interesting to note that if you look at our salaries are net salaries, so this does include retirements and all the things that are baked into our salary line items, is going to increase by 3.62% based upon our budget, which is the lowest in the past 4 years on an increased basis. So again, prudent budgeting and good fiscal discipline is helping us here significantly, especially when you look at a lot of our peers. And these are the other parts of the budget that Dr. Jordan presented earlier this year. One thing to just note, we draw people's attention to, which is definitely having an impact on our budget. Over the last 5 years, or actually I guess 4 years, there's been a 25% increase in IEPs and 504s in the district. At the same time, our out-of-district placements are actually down 17%. But I don't have it on here, but the cost per pupil for out-of-district has just been skyrocketing as the providers of these out-of-district services have been given waivers by the state to increase tuition rates at 20, 30% or more. Last year it was 14% like across the board. So I know that's because I've had some conversations with our state rep, but more people I'm sure have talked with him about that. It's definitely something that is continuing to put pressure on the budgets, because as these numbers go up, it just takes time for circuit breaker to come in to offset that. Again, but to be clear, these are services that are both legally and morally we're obligated to provide. So this is in no way putting on any sort of blame on any population. It's just a reality of the sort of the post-COVID educational environment. I thought this was interesting to add because I wanted to demonstrate the work that a lot of our administrators and staff do to bring in outside grants to the district to help offset or increase services that we offer while not putting that burden onto the town. So, so far this year we've been awarded over $600,000 in different grants for different items. You can go and look at each of them in the presentation. But again, this is 1.4%, 1.5% of our budget, so it's a significant additional source of revenue for us, or in ways that we can augment our educational offering. Just kind of going forward, so what are some risks and potential opportunities for favorability? Again, more out-of-district placements. If we end up having to replace departing staff members with new staff that are more expensive, as we've seen, gasoline prices increase, continued increases to heating and electricity rates could pressure the budget. There's always talk about, with the Trump administration cutting federal government funding. We have $850,000 from the IDEA grant that comes from the federal government. The elimination of that would be a huge risk. So far, that doesn't seem to be happening, but wait an hour and things could change. And then obviously state aid is if the state budget, we saw the Senate President Spilka and Representative Marina DeRosa were in to present to the select board a couple weeks ago. It was very clear that they were concerned about the budget and the additional costs the state was seeing. So as they go through the budget process, there's concern about revenue. They could decide to cut even from the governor's already low number. In prior years, the governor's number has been kind of the low mark, and they've been able to increase it. But as things change, that could change this year. Potential opportunities for favorability, again, well, we don't like turnover. More staff turnover does present opportunities for cost savings, though it can also end up costing more. Just as other districts are doing layoffs, the applicant pool there could provide opportunities for us to get some high-quality teachers that get caught up in that. And then it does seem like our solar install is going to be quicker than we were expecting, and we may even be able to see some benefits to our budget next year from that. That being said, it's a pretty small number to begin with, so probably doesn't have a huge impact. These are the priority needs that Dr. Kuska presented. This is our priority of the priority needs, so that out-of-district coordinator is really the top priority. And then we also need ELL or multilingual learner tutors, literacy reading specialist at Rams, and campus supervisor at Rams. Looking quickly at our capital requests, which is not insignificant. We're looking at a lot of curriculum. We've been doing a lot of curriculum reviews, and at the end of that, there's a recommendation on curriculum. So $275,000 for K through 5 ELA curriculum, $150,000 for pre-K to 2 and 6 through 8 science curriculum, then $100,000 for the high school schedule shift change, $65,000. We have a maintenance truck that is in dire need of replacement. It's over 10 years old and duct taped together a little bit. And then we have some technology infrastructure needs as well. And that's just for May. We may have more for October. Then we get to sort of the big one, which is the high school feasibility study. And so the school committee has supported a request for $2.5 million that was proposed by Dr. Jordan, Mr. Keaston, and Frank Gervasio, the town manager. This is the warrant article that we are working with council to just finalize and get into the warrant. One thing I would say is I know there's a lot of talk about how we're going to fund this, and one thing I want to be clear on, and I know the committee hasn't taken a position on it, but the town was favorably supported our money to set aside for the Placentino Miller roof last year of $1.35 million. To me, that is something that we absolutely should not or cannot touch. That is money that we've set aside for an MSBA program. I think sort of dipping into that to help fund this it is not a good look for the MSBA, and it is something that we are going to need in the future. And so I am confident after having conversations with the Finance Committee chair and doing some more that we have that money elsewhere, and we just this is not the appropriate place to look for it. That being said, it is a significant ask, and I know a little bit later Dr. Jordan will be going through exactly what a feasibility study is, but we really hope that people come out to town meeting to support this warrant article. Just a quick update on where our large capital projects are. And then I would be remiss if I didn't point out the fact that we were basically right on where we told the town we would come in at 2 years ago. So I think that's a lot of hard work has been done by our administrative team to ensure that we were able to get there, and just very proud to say that we did. So that's it from me. And I don't know if there are any questions.
How does it work for?
If people have questions, they can come up and ask questions, or...
Are there questions on the budget presentation? No. Okay.
No?
So...
Did all that for nothing?
So we do a motion to close the hearing?
I mean, unless anyone on the committee has anything they want to say, but yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have questions, comments? No. So I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second by Dawn.
And all in favor? Okay. Okay, so now we will continue on with the, I'd like to reopen the regular session. Are we good?
Back on the agenda.
Get back on the agenda. Okay. So we're going to start with the consent agenda. I do want to make a note. We're going to hold off on the March 19th meeting minutes. We're still working on those. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of the March 19th minutes.
Moved by Dawn.
Second.
All in favor? Great. That passes. And we move right on to report from student representatives.
Hello. So the spring band and chorus concert was yesterday, March 25th. From students directing in band to beautiful choral ballads, the night was full of life and music. And next up for Holliston's music ensembles is the Pops concert in the spring. Theater 370 student-written show for our competition festival, Releve, did not move on to the semifinal round, but 2 actors and 2 members of the creative team won awards. And auditions for the spring play, Alice in Wonderland, were last week, and rehearsals underway with the show scheduled for April 30th, May 1st, and May 2nd.
To recap some prior sporting events, the wrestling team has had a successful All-States, sending Henry McGilligot, Skylar Rodenheiser, and Violet Polney to New England. And then at New England, Henry McGilligot went on to match the best performance ever by a Holliston wrestler, finishing 3rd for all of New England. And then 2 weeks ago, Lucy Downen competed in the New Balance Nationals meet in the girls' freshman mile and achieved a very impressive 2nd place. She also had a strong performance in the girls' 800 meter. And currently, spring sports are now all underway. And for track and field, 3 athletes have been named Metro West track and field athletes to watch for their upcoming season.
The class of 2026 senior showcase was on March 11th, with many incredible acts from dancing to storytelling to live music, and a large crowd from the community came to support the seniors. The group dance closed it off with We're All in This Together from High School Musical. And in their previous meetings, our Regional Student Advisory Council representatives had been collecting data from schools and administrators about the effects of different lengths of unbroken learning time in school. And in their most recent meeting, they began to create their final proposal, which includes building in a mental health day to school schedules, which will be presented to DESE.
And DECA had a very successful weekend at States. 40 athletes spent 3 days, students spent 3 days building their networking, communication, and critical thinking skills at the 2025 State Career Development Conference. After all of the business role plays and exams, Holliston students came out on top, including 7 state placers and 15 nationals qualifiers. And then 13 of them will be traveling to Atlanta during April break to compete and hope to continue their success there. And then finally, last weekend, the Robo Panthers robotics team competed in their first event of the season. There was a lot of learning done and progress made, but they still finished high in the standings and look forward to New England District Championships in a month. And that's all from us. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. School committee comments? Let's start with you, Frank.
Nothing tonight.
Joe?
Nothing for me.
Tracy?
I wanted to shout out to the 3rd grade teachers, particularly the music teachers at Miller with the Mrs. York and Pearson with the great showcase 3rd graders and some 4th graders. I got to do the double feature. I had kids in both classes, so double feature on Tuesday night. But it was great, and the kids did a great job, and I was really impressed with their performance. So that's great.
I wanted to thank the high school administrators for the program of studies presentation last week, which was really well attended by incoming 9th graders through 11th graders at the high school, and a lot of information about all the course electives and different course pathways. And also wanted to say good luck to the Rams drama group that's doing Beauty and the Beast this weekend.
Nothing more from me.
Okay.
Yeah, covered it.
All right. Let's see. Is there a public comment? Did anyone? No one? Yeah. She can. Hi, Ann.
I almost didn't come because I have so many thoughts about this whole math and science thing, and I didn't think that I could, what?
Name and address, too.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Ann Canoni, 1135 Highland Street. So I almost didn't come tonight because I have so many thoughts on this math and science situation that we find ourselves in. I'm fired up about it. There's a lot of community members that are fired up about it. I listened to Karen's conversation at the school committee last week, and I felt like there wasn't really a plan for the science, but that's just my thoughts, my takeaway. And before anything like that is implemented, I really think that, and I think I've since heard that something's changed, but because I'm a 6th grade parent, I haven't received that email, which I think is a big problem with this transparency. I just think that before any of these changes are made, there has to be a plan. And it even goes to the fact with the 6th grade, they're talking about a fluid program where in the fall kids can switch in or switch out. And if you haven't been in the classroom, that's not an easy feat to do for anybody, never mind the social emotional aspect that goes with a student, but also the fact that they're coming into a class that they've missed. So I did decide to come because I feel like I have a lot of important experiences, and I wrote something up, and I hope that I get it out. And this is not intended to criticize anybody or anything. It's just how I feel. Okay. Retired educator with 28 years experience, including 3 years at Westwood Middle School and 25 years at Holliston High School. I have a wide range of experience in both teaching and administration, have been involved in several curriculum reviews, including at least 3 in mathematics. I bring many years of historical knowledge to the table. I'd like to begin tonight with a quote from Dr. Brad Johnson, whom I'm sure most educators would recognize. And this is really important to me, and I brought this to the math committee last year. When a third grade math problem is written as a 5th grade reading level, it stops being a math problem. It becomes a reading test, and it becomes a tool for score distribution. When the language is harder than the math, the outcome is predictable. Students understand the math, they know the operation, they miss the question because of how it's written. And I can testify that if you have spent any time on STAR testing, IXL, even MCAS, these standardized testings can be hard for kids that have a hard time, or any child, even myself, sometimes have to reread them. Okay, this quote resonates with me because I believe there are real limitations to relying too heavily on standardized testing alone. I'd like to remind everyone that Dr. Brad Jackson, our previous superintendent, emphasized the importance of MCAS testing for graduation requirements, but also made it clear that instruction should not be driven by the test itself. In fact, for many years, he discouraged assigning some work unless it was connected to AP courses. In recent years, however, it feels as though our districts had shifted too far in the opposite direction. We are now assigning summer work at the middle school level and relying on testing data to determine placement in accelerated classes with no teacher input. The message sends to the students and family that strong test performance is the primary or even sole measure of readiness. Yet qualities like perseverance, problem solving, and intellectual curiosity are just as critical to long-term success, and these are not always captured in standardized assessments. I understand that over the past few years, the message from the school committee and administration has been that all students should have the opportunity to take Algebra 1 and/or calculus in high school. However, in practice, if a student does not complete algebra in 8th grade, it becomes very difficult for them to reach calculus by the end of the high school year. So why are we limiting these 6th grade students? These are little human beings. We have also heard that the math programming at Rams will be fluid. I would appreciate a clear explanation of what this means for students in practice. Based on my experience as a math teacher, it can be quite challenging for students to enter a class after it has already begun. At the high school, they have 10 days to do that. And particularly in accelerated courses where the pace is fast and the foundational concepts are introduced immediately. I am unsure how this model would work effectively at Rams, and I would still like to see specifically how it will go. I know I have 2 minutes. I'm going to try to go faster. Additionally, I would like to better understand why there is no teacher input into the placement process. It was mentioned that anecdotally, math teachers are comfortable not having input. However, I believe it's important to rely on quantitative data to support that claim. While I understand that teachers may feel uncomfortable making recommendations, especially since they are often placed in a position of explaining to families why a student may struggle in a more advanced class, teacher insight remains a valuable component of appropriate placement. And I know, Dan, you had mentioned this at the meeting last week, that, well, teachers shouldn't have to burden that task. Well, we do. Like, parents don't understand that if a kid's used to getting an A, why aren't they getting an A if they move to an accelerated class? We spend a lot of time going over that. Therefore, I propose two possible solutions. Could teachers have an opportunity to give a 0 to 3 scale along with the other? I don't know, I think there's 12 points maybe already, so could we make it out of 15, where teacher could give some input? Or could we use the students' grades that they have right now, a term 1 grade and a term 2 grade, take an average and make that a scale? So somehow those kids feel like their hard work has contributed. In all my experience as a teacher, and I've had a lot of experience in all these areas, we've always had teacher input. And then when you get to the high school, there's such disparity because you don't have to have anything to do an override. So we're going from one extreme to the other. And my big concern is the lack of transparency throughout this whole process. We haven't received any criteria. The only way you're getting the criteria is if you reach out to Carla Kraus. That criteria should be made available so parents can explain to their child why they didn't make it into it. I know I'm gonna wrap it up because I know I'm running out of time. But the only thing that I do want to say is that I hope that we can work to a more balanced approach, one that values both academic performance and the broadest set of skills students need to thrive. And I think that we need to remember these kids are little. And I hope that the Rams administration will reflect on the lack of transparency in the process and consider whether adjustments can be made before the end of the school year. So, and I just want to add a couple more anecdotals. My daughter did get in. Okay, I'm not here because of her. I'm here because, as you guys all know, this is something I'm very passionate about. And I think that we as the community are owed more. We owe a community forum. I also just want to say one more thing, that my daughter in the fall scored 750 on IXL. Then she scored 610 in November. Then she scored 700 in January. So is that 610 an outlier? Did she not take it seriously? Was she having a bad test day? Like I think these are things that need to be looked at. So I just want to wrap with that, and I hope that things can go forward. Thank you. Oh, and Dan, did you guys, I sent a couple people the criteria. Did you guys see that criteria I sent from years ago?
It's on you if you haven't had a chance.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Bill.
Keep going. What were you considering? Talking about science. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to? Or just stick with it.
Just stay with science on field trip.
Oh.
Not about the field.
Yeah. I know. We're trying to get you all out. Mr. List, if you would like to, if we'll hop up to the field trip because that'll be a fairly quick discussion.
In 5 minutes or less.
Yeah, 5 minutes or less. Right.
He likes to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I know. I really do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So international travel has become a big part of the experience at Holliston High School for students, and we're trying to create opportunities for more and more kids to do it and make it more accessible for them. We've had some pretty big trips. They've been expensive. We're heading to Japan in 3 weeks, but in talking to students and families, wanting to try to create options, give them more time to pay, so to pay it out over time and to provide scholarships for students. So we are proposing a trip to France, Germany, and Switzerland 2 years from now. That trip is built up of some, of course, of the tour pieces that you do within Paris and Germany and Switzerland, but also historical visits throughout different countries, including trips to concentration camps in World War II sites. The goal of bringing this here now, for 2 years from now, is that we're able to offer the trip at a price of I think it's about $190 a month for families, and we would be having meetings to sign students up after spring break, so in about a month. Again, we're very lucky to have scholarship available to families who are interested, and we're just really blessed to be in a community that students want to partake in these travel experiences. So our hope is that we can move forward with this trip and continue to find trips plan these trips 2+ years out so that they become more accessible.
spots are available?
So, I mean, technically speaking, they will do up to 2 buses, but ideally, it's like, one bus really is where you want to go, which is about 46 spots on those buses. But if there was interest in beyond that, we could possibly run you can run similar trips in the area, but there's about 46 spots.
It's open to all students, not like you don't take a certain class.
This one's open to all students. Yeah.
And we don't run it through educational tours. I guess it's important to mention that an outside vendor.
It's open to all current freshmen and sophomores.
It would be current freshmen and sophomores, yes.
Okay. Can next year new incoming freshmen, can they join this late if it's not full?
If there's spots, if there are spots, they'd be able to. As I said, there have been lots of students who want to partake in these, and so I think learning from this Japan trip where we had more students who wanted to go than spots, I've already started talking with another one of our teachers who's interested in offering a World War II trip where they go to Normandy, they go to England, they go different. So another European-based trip that also falls into the same price range. So we have to just see what the interest is in this trip.
And the affordability part, I know I was really concerned about that when Japan came and Thailand, and when we've approached this before. Do we know how many scholarships are offered, and are they full scholarships, partial scholarships? What are we talking
So the way it works is EF, so nationally EF, it's no better way to say it than kickbacks to teachers for running these tours. So we don't allow our teachers to take that funding, and it's done through a point system. And so those points from previous trips that teachers run, that goes into like a bank. And so when this trip to Japan is done, we'll have around between $12,000 and $15,000 in scholarship available, and that keeps refilling with every trip that you then go on. So, and so that's about where it is. And then if it's not fully used, you just have more money to use. So we had a few $1,000s available for Japan. We did not get any requests for scholarships, but I've encouraged people to ask for scholarships. We want students to go. The scholarship is there for a reason.
Do those expire? Okay. How much was Japan? You don't have to get the
I don't remember the exact dollars. It's much more than this.
That's what I thought. It was like closer to...
It's close to six something, yeah.
Thailand's like 55.
Yeah, it's 6 something or 55, yeah, so.
So we're locking into then, Dan, I know you're passionate about this. April break, 2028.
This is an April break, so that was not going to be.
So, what they do is they give you the earliest possible, just based on travel, what they do is they give you the earliest possible date that they might book a flight. So I think it's the Wednesday, the week before is that date. Usually it's like a Thursday night. It does end up doing that. A lot of times you do that because you really don't want the kids coming back on Sunday night to then go to school the next day. So there is that trade-off there.
That's actually easy from Europe because Europe.
Will it cover some of April in terms of missing school?
So it'll be so ideally it runs for it's mostly during April break. They give you that earliest date that they would like have to travel when they book it. But again, like when looking at these trips, it's really hard for the kids to come back really early from them and then have to go to school. Like coming back the day before school starts would not.
And then I think I asked this with Japan before, maybe it was Thailand, but is there any interest for a domestic trip that's less money too? Because families sometimes are hesitant to ask for a scholarship of this amount, or especially if they don't know, even $1,000 or $2,000, even half of this or a quarter of this is a lot for some families. Is there any interest in any domestic trips that could be substantially less money?
So the domestic trips that end up being less money, to be quite honest, domestic travel in the U.S. is not actually cheaper necessarily than going to Europe or going to other places. There are trips that exist where you go for like long weekends to like French trips to like Montreal or something like that, but those still end up being in the range for a long weekend of $800 to like $1,000 for those trips. Because a lot of times you're taking the buses, which gas prices, bus prices now. So any of these trips that you're going on ends up being in the thousands of dollar range, and they're it's who offers it, what we offer, and figuring that out. I know that like Mr. Bilodeau's looking at band trips, those type of things. But even those for the week for 5 days or 4 days end up being like $2,000. So it's like it really is like it's like the travel in the U.S. actually doesn't always end up much cheaper.
Is that financing pending like a credit rating? How does that work?
No, it's.
Oh, so
Credit check. Credit reading?
well, credit check. Sorry, credit check. Usually you have these loans that are given based on a credit check.
Yeah,
I mean, right?
So that's not how these work.
Okay, so you can.
This is you just tell them you want to pay monthly, and the charge, if you do without the charge, the math it's no more expensive
No need to explain.
than.
I wasn't sure if there was an approval
There and then there's
process.
you put down like a $75 like holding number, and then there's time for you to back out of it. Then there is so one of the things that's part of these trips when you pay for it on there, part of the cost on that is mandatory insurance.
Okay.
So we make families buy insurance. There are levels to that insurance. You can buy like the gold package, which lets you pull out like the day before the trip. But we require that all families buy insurance, which get them out. It's only a minimal loss if they back out of the trip, and then they get most of their money back. But so that's added into the cost. It's part of that cost that's already built in, is mandatory insurance because there are issues that arise, and it's just easier to build it into the cost.
Gotcha.
Right, they don't actually start spending the money until like 3 months before the trip is when they start booking things. So actually, if you're paying up front, they're actually making
I wasn't
money
sure if that was
investing.
paid up front or after.
You don't always have to. You can pay, but then if you haven't.
Does it start when you sign up then? So you start paying $192?
You can. You do not need to. There's
Right.
different.
There's different ways to pay for it. There's different ways. This is like that breakdown is like the most like if you start that day, you pay that month, and you just do it throughout.
Right.
There are different ways to do it, and Dan's right. You pay that to them. They don't start booking it until
arbitrage.
Yeah.
And this price contemplates the most basic insurance level, or?
Yes. Yeah.
This doesn't involve host families. They're all together, the group's together, right?
Correct. We do still have I'll be back, the end of this year for the French once those dates are finalized for like the French exchange and all that. So, and we still have that program that'll be this coming year.
Yes, that's both, even though it's not our sponsored trip, we're offering it through.
Yeah.
So yes, I would put it on for both for next time. Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the international school trip for 2028 to go to France, Germany, the Alps.
So moved.
Okay. All in favor? That passes. Great. We want to thank you. Should we just continue on with the new business and we'll talk about the 8th grade science now, and then we'll get back to the rest of our agenda.
In your school committee folder, one is this presentation, but there's also a spreadsheet that just kind of provides like another layer of detail. So I'll speak to some of the details there, but I just wanted you to have your visual eyes on some of that more nuanced detail as well. So my recommendation is you kind of look up here, but have on your screen the spreadsheet, and I'll kind of speak to some of the things that are there. Karen apologizes that she's not able to be here. I think she was able to move quickly and get into the meeting that was able to last week, but this was not something that she was available for. So I'm offered kind of considering some of the community feedback and some questions, making myself available, having been the former middle school principal, and being able to answer definitely some of the technical questions, scheduling questions, constraints, and kind of understanding some of that background. What I can say today is Karen has met with a lot of community members, school community members, spoken more with teachers, really sat down with her guidance department and her leadership team and curriculum specialists to kind of really see how, kind of where we can weave in and find some opportunities here at the middle school. So there is the availability. She is able to kind of offer one section of honors science. Historically, we've had about 2 to 3 sections. The current 8th grade has 3 sections, but I'd say since we've had our honors science, and even if you go back to kind of 2019 and prior to that, when we had the multiple levels in 8th grade, we historically would have 2 algebra sections and then 2 honors science sections. This is a smaller class. This is about 183 students that are in this class. If you were to compare it across the average, that would still probably be about a section and a half that we would be able to kind of build without putting too many constraints on like other scheduling needs that we have in the building. So she is able to kind of offer one section of honors science. This is a great collaboration with the guidance counselors and SSA to kind of map this out. This was, as it currently stands, yeah, she had the 14 seats. She is immediately moving that to 23, but that does still have buffer space in there. My recommendation, Karen knows this, and I'm sure the 8th grade science teachers who teach honor science would say the same, is that you do not want to push the upper class sizes within an honor science class, specifically kind of for the space and the lab capacity that you would have. So that's something that she's got in mind. So if we can move to, and this is just kind of a 26, 27 kind of offering, I think, based off the class sizes that we have currently in the 6th grade. As they move on to 8th grade, those are more traditional sizes that we've had above 200 students. So that gets us to our 2 projected, if you were to budget it out or project it out, your 2 sections of honor science and your 2 sections of algebra. Again, depending on the specific kids we've got, the specific needs we have, sometimes we end up at 3 algebra or 3 honor science, but that's just pretty fluid based on the numbers that we have. The second slide is just kind of speaking to one of the major driving variables that we have with kind of the smaller class that we have. This is a class that is at 29% of the students on IEPs. We historically, when we've, I would say our current 8th grade, that class in the inclusion sections had the percent that we have on IEPs is 22% of students. So we typically try to find a range that's right around that 20 to 22% in our inclusion sections that we've offered at the middle school historically. And that goes back to when we had all of the levels in 2019, and prior to that, we typically average right around 20% that we would have in our inclusion sections. The model, and I think what led to kind of Karen talking about the integrated 14 students that we had, 14, 16 students, and kind of moving that into kind of this integrated honors pathway that we had for this. I'm fine where we are.
No, it's funny to admit.
Got it. The kind of integrated pathway that was in the initial suggestion that Karen had put together, that had us at our inclusion sections at 29%. That's a little bit higher, still higher than what we typically would path, but something that was sustainable. By adding one section, that puts us at about 39%. I call that kind of like your yellow range for your inclusion section. It's definitely something that's still doable. I think the challenging part of still the 39% is when we add IEPs into that. With one section, we're still at 58%. If we add another honors section, just our IEP inclusion numbers then get above the 50% that we have. These are kind of like what you're looking at your spreadsheet, what are highlighted. Those are best case scenarios. There are some additional constraints that are harder to calculate in kind of the sandbox right now, which are the impact of the 2 algebra sections, our small group, the 2 sections of small group math, our co-taught, 2 co-taught math sections and the honor section that we have, how those Tetris pieces match together as far as once group moves, what their offerings are throughout the schedule. So we are, even though with offering the one honor section and you have 39% of the students in the inclusion on IEPs, that number will rise by the start of the school. It will go up by a certain percentage. We just don't have a good handle on what that percentage will be. We can confidently say it will not go down below 39%. There is some history that's kind of provided there. Then there's historically since 2019, and this is on this slide. We hover right around 16% of our students on IEP, and that even goes back historically. We have some ups and downs, but historically we're hovering around an average of about 16%. But what I will say is, in this current class with nearly one in 3 incoming 8th graders carrying an IEP, almost doubles the historical baseline, and this fundamentally shapes how any schedule of course offerings can be scheduled. So if we go on to the next page. And this is getting into some like liability risks that we kind of get ourselves into as a district that I want to kind of just be conscious of. Whatever decision we make as a district, is DESE guidance is that 30% to 50% in an inclusion section. Now, we hear people kind of quote or talk about like this 50% rule, and I put 50% in an air quote. This is the law that's associated with it. Is that when you're kind of going over the 50%, this is where you start needing to categorize yourself, the class, as a substantially separate or a special education class, not an inclusion section, not a general education section. When you do that, this starts pressing on the definition of least restrictive environments. You're not offering a general education class, and the LRE is a federal mandate. So least restrictive environment requirement is embedded in IDEA. So with that, non-compliance in IDEA is a kind of a legal federal law, and case law around the 50% has ruled. When the majority of students are on an IEP in a class, it is a special education class and not an inclusion class, and that's where you can end up in this space of like DESE PRS complaints, where you can get put onto kind of a corrective action plan as a district. Also, you can get into like FAPE exposure, where you can get into places with families that you end up in litigation with families for free and appropriate public education that is there. So. This isn't an effort to kind of create only one section or no section. It's just a very complicated, challenging situation that we wish we had better solutions. And I think this being kind of the first major year, we've kind of moved back to offering our algebra and our honor sections kind of bleeding together, combined with some higher percentage in groups than we had 6-7 years ago, is just kind of this being the first year of some growing pains. And I do just want to acknowledge that Karen and that admin team made some great strides in making some adjustments and learning from the process. And we've got a pretty new team. I think Angela Gavin's probably the only kind of person over there that's been there through that whole process there in the past. And so, I just appreciate her effort in kind of helping take another look at this.
So I just want to thank Karen a lot for going back and taking the time to really take a look at this, listening to the community feedback, to our feedback, and just reassessing and seeing what could be done. I think that these are important things for the community. We obviously heard from a lot of people, and it's I really just appreciate all the work that's gone in to this from her and the whole team that it runs. And thank you for pitching in. I know it's a little bit, out of what we told you your lane was, but but
I like my voice.
We know. I like mine too.
You know that too.
We can, but that's I think that I like the context of helping the community also understand what it takes to put together teams, classrooms, and I know that this was not anyone's intent, but talking about IEPs and special education is not in no way to sort of put any sort of blame or anything on it, but I think it just helps add context into the complexity of the situation. And I think going back to sort of the budget slide, one of the reasons why I included like the 25% increase in IEP and 504s is that it does have impacts it can have impacts on the classroom that just make things more complicated. And that's not to say that we should be removing offerings or not trying to get kids on IEPs and 504s into those classes. I mean, there's nothing that says that someone on a 504 or an IEP can't be in honors or accelerated, and we actually should be doing as much work as we can to sort of help them get into those offerings. But it does add a lot of context around there. One question, David, that is a bit more in your wheelhouse. There's kind of been this rumor, we talked about it a little bit last week, about how two budgets ago we cut to elementary positions middle school positions because of actually this class being smaller. And it's sort of a rumor that part of the driving factor to this has been the fact that it was budgetary and essentially that we eliminated those positions. Can you just speak to that a little bit and whether that would have done anything here?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it wouldn't do anything in this situation. So it's a percentage thing. So while more teachers might reduce class size, it doesn't change the percentage that we would have. So that's the major factor here. So I wish there was a great resource solution. It's got to be a great excuse to come to you all for more money, but I don't at this time. I mean, I know I've talked with some of you offline and in small settings to kind of figure out like what are some alternative means, and I know the school is looking at like how do we offer things within Rams block. Carla Kraus, who's just a wonderful thinker, and I know Susan may recognize something a little bit later with her. But she's a wonderful individual, and is kind of looking at like how does she she's trying to already do this within algebra herself. It's like, how does she support those students who are going to be accessing algebra, who still may need support with the 8th grade standards and 7th grade standards? How do we similarly look at potentially, with further discussion, offering more of an integrated approach for those students who don't end up in that section of honors science, but really want that honors challenge? Is how does Carla and how does the team provide that type of offering or support to challenge our students? I mean, I'm a big believer in providing an incredibly challenging and rigorous curriculum and then providing support for our students to attain it. And I think that's a pathway this district supports and looks for. And so that means across all of our curriculum is we should have an incredibly challenging curriculum, and then we should have the resources to support those who might be struggling with that curriculum.
I say one thing too related to FAPE, because we think of this as, we talked about special education a lot, but it's also the general education population, because if we flip the numbers and have a larger percentage of IEPs in a classroom, potentially we open ourselves up to liability, where the general education students' parents could also say, you've now put my student in a special ed program, but they're not on an IEP. So I mean, there's so many layers to that can happen, and PRS with DESE becomes a very obtrusive process and can take a year or more, right, BJ? I mean, and then typically, they make recommendations and we show that we comply, but it's the amount of time and energy put into that process, and it doesn't really make a difference long term. We're still left with the situation and how to resolve it, and this is something we always try to do outside of the PRS process.
I did want to say thank you again to the administration and the teachers who've engaged. I mean, we've been at this for 9 days, and a lot of these are difficult conversations, and they require a lot of, getting us up to speed on the background of it, and then also enhancing communication with the community about the whys and what this would look like. And I feel like this is probably, would you agree, this is kind of an ongoing endeavor here in terms of communicating what what this will look like. But I really appreciate the compromise position of opening up at least one classroom and then continuing to look at ways to bring that increased rigor and increased curriculum at other levels. And one thing, maybe just one creative approach. I know we have many of our seniors here at the high school who take part in the internship program, and we see a lot of them down in the elementary schools. But don't forget, these are kids who have gotten through the science curriculum. Many of them have taken that honors science class that those 8th graders would see the following year. If there is any way we could work with guidance and see if we could get some of those high school interns down into our 8th grade science classes and bring their energy and bring their knowledge of some of the labs and also help the teachers in that regard too. But creative ways to approach it next year. I feel like this is an ongoing conversation.
So a couple more things, just quickly. So just back to the budget quickly. So more teachers, as much as we'd like to always have more teachers, would not have solved this situation. In the meantime, we do get comments from the community, like, you're seeing it, dropping enrollment. How is your budget still increasing as much? And I think that, one of the things that we're doing is it is increasing because all budgets are increasing across districts, but we are taking the fiscally disciplined approach and making sure that while we're meeting our class size goals, we are moving staff, moving positions or eliminating positions mostly through attrition where we can, so that we don't actually have bigger budgets than we already would. So I think that the community and the taxpayers should actually be appreciative of the fact that we're not just trying to keep positions just because we currently have them. The last thing I'll say on this is just, it's more just sort of talking out there, but it's not to anyone at this table necessarily, but I do think we need to work on being more transparent about the criteria for how kids get into these honors classes up front and earlier. I mean, at 5th grade, MCAS scores are going to be used as a criteria for getting into accelerated or honors math in 7th grade. Those kids in 5th grade, or at least their parents, should be made aware of that. If a kid is sitting down for an exam and being told that this doesn't count towards your grade, it should also be told, but it can impact if you want to go into the honors track. And not to say that we were trying to worry anyone, but just get a good night's sleep beforehand. If it's something that is important to you, just know to take it a little bit extra seriously. And then also just having, if there is a formula, again, what are all those components out there? And it does seem like there's a spreadsheet out there. I don't think it's been shared with the committee, but I'd love to sort of better understand that at some point. Not tonight, but I also do agree with Ann that we should try some way to then layer in. I appreciate the quantitative approach because it does take some of the subjectivity out of it. At the same time, our teachers are the ones that know the kids the best, and so that we should at least be trying to find a way to layer that on top of the selection criteria as well to ensure. I think combining those ensures that you really aren't going to miss kids.
Yeah, I think the data is useful so that you don't miss kids who could potentially do the work. But I think on top of that, the teacher could also add that for whatever reason, on top of the data, there may be other kids who. So it's more of pushing kids into the program instead of keeping them out of honors.
Oh yeah.
So I'll take a non-budget angle here, because last time I mentioned budget in this conversation last week, it was yelled at.
Sternly reprimanded.
Communication is key with this. I know it took us 9 days to get here. How much can we do this more up front when we make changes like this? Like maybe not to this detail, but even putting this together and seeing these numbers, I think help the community, help parents understand why these things need to happen, right? We can't, doing one thing could cause another, and not explaining that, you don't get one. The other thing specifically mentioned here, like the opportunity for access, even in parentheses, what is that? Like, how do we explain that to parents? Like, because one, it's already in parentheses, so how do I access? What's my opportunity to access? So explaining that, and I know this is more of a presentation for tonight, but giving parents that opportunity and what that looks like. What are the steps? I've heard a lot of people say, well, okay, what do I do? Do I call up my principal? Do I call up my teacher? Do I call a school committee? Probably neither of all three, right? So what's the process? I think that would help.
I'll just go a step further. Like we're fielding a lot of questions, and we're of course directing them back to Ram's leadership. But what's the plan for how parents are going to hear more of this information, especially if they're not listening tonight?
I mean, I think that's something as far as, wasn't reflected in the presentation, but Karen and her team, as far as this next process, what that communication is looking to kind of communicate a broader. Not only was kind of the email I think that she sent out earlier this week was kind of waiting until this Thursday, and then much more communication following tonight as far as kind of coming out. So we should anticipate something from Karen specifically on exactly how they will be engaging, and then how families can engage in the process.
And I would encourage also trying to figure out ways to get it to parents of younger kids as well, just so they understand sort of what's going on. I know that we also get complaints that there's too much mail coming to people's inboxes, so it's a delicate balance, but
can you talk to also,
yeah.
Sorry, I share the frustrations with the lack of transparency on the process moving forward. It seems to be a little bit of a gap from what we heard last week in our meeting and some of the conversations that we've had, and even this presentation as well, what that next step is. But what led to this class in particular? And I get the size, I understand that, but to take away both student, teacher voice and parent voice. I mean, if we look at the high school, they have this override process where they want that rigor. We're allowing our students to take those challenging courses, which we should be. Our goal is to take those B students and prove to them that they are A students if they want to be. And that's our job as teachers, as educators, as parents. It feels like we're at this very critical developmental stage where these kids are 13 years old. They are struggling in their own brains to figure out what's right. We're putting a lot of weight, as our public comment earlier, on these standardized tests and taking out all these things that should have a pretty substantial basis. And why has that been done now? And can we switch that for this year, or are we just 7th grade out of luck?
Yeah, I mean, I think this even goes to, I think, what I think some of the school committee has even said in open session about, how do we communicate clearly to families that, if you are going to override, if you're going to be in this class, you anticipate that you may significantly struggle in this class, and there won't be as much of the hands or parachute to kind of catch you in those moments. I think that's having been in it for a long time. There was even back in 2013, in that process of having the significant overrides, is even the pressure on the teachers teaching those classes and getting the constant critique of being, and this is part of even not wanting the desire to not want to do the recommendation process and how it harms the relationship with the teacher and the student and the family, is the constant pressure on that teacher to, I wouldn't say inflate the grade, but change the way the instruction is, or that if the student was struggling in that honors class or in that algebra class, that it was some way or somehow the teacher's fault that it was occurring in that space. I think that while right now we're at one section at 23, that's the minimal number we are. So we are kind of looking at who is going to be placed and who's override, who's putting into those extra sections that we have. And I do think that same way a budget process, as you get closer and closer to the start of the school year, as we get closer and closer further, we more solidify our actual numbers of how we're able to kind of schedule the students we have, as far as getting into a little bit more exact process of the number of seats that we truly have for those sections.
Just want to add on that I've done my share of course recommendations in my career, and I understand that piece, but I think by removing both parts and not having an override process that's clearly stated, it does put more of a pressure on the teachers. But if you do have, I've had many students who are I don't think you're qualified, here's why, but here's what you can do, and the here's what you can do is missing from this whole process that's been shared out with parents, and that's frustrating.
And I think, it's one of the things we've talked about in a number of years, because this topic keeps coming back, it's not going away. And the student voice, where is the student voice in it? Because honestly, as much as, as a parent myself, having raised 4 children, you want to encourage your child to be as motivated and high achieving as possible. That being said, I would like to hear from the student voice. Do they want it too? Because the parent could help them get there, but if the child doesn't really want it, that to me is, and at this age, I feel like middle school is a time where they are able to advocate for themselves with some parent encouragement. And I think we talked about that a few years ago, that can we add a component where the student is actually almost interviewed by the teacher and part, like you were saying, sharing what the challenges would be. Is this something that you feel like you can do? Because then giving that piece to it, I think, is important.
Just to add to that, while we're definitely hearing some concerns, frustrations from parents, I'm also hearing it from some 7th grade students, and about who got identified for this versus not. So there's definitely some students out there who would like to receive accelerated or advanced opportunities, but might not be assigned at it yet. So thinking about that communication piece, that opportunity for access in that heterogeneous science class needs to be really carefully communicated to students so that they understand, how do I take advantage of that? How do I identify that to my teacher? What does that look like? And then also on the teacher side, careful monitoring about who's taking advantage of those opportunities so that you can make adjustments. I think that's going to be really tricky, but it would be an important part of the process.
I think one of the things that gets lost sometimes, is the communication piece. I think as educators, you see all the parts and pieces behind this, but I think for parents, even the back to school night open house at the beginning of the year at all 3 middle school levels, that is an opportunity for administrators to kind of talk ahead about what this looks like for the next year, and then continue to have those conversations with certainly email updates with real specificity before the placement tests are given, because I think maybe something that's lost here is that parents didn't have and families, students included, didn't have a strong enough understanding about the assessments and the placement and the whys behind all of this. So I think it's an opportunity to look at next year differently and do this in multiple ways too. In person at back to school night, over email multiple times, just address it in different ways. And I feel like it's kind of a conversation that we need to continue to have too, because I think there's probably still some questions. I think what I'm hearing about what Science 8 would look like in the delivery of accessing some of the additional curriculum. So I think we'll probably still continue to have this on our agenda.
Yeah, and I think Don, you indicated, Dan is too, is I think these types of presentations, or even just opportunities to kind of provide a depth of just kind of some of the constraints and things that we have, it's because it's not, sometimes it feels like it's just because we didn't want to, or we wanted to do this, and there are just pressures, and sometimes we're the admin and leadership at a building level are taking all those variables and those pressures and the constraints by themselves and are trying to figure out a path out of it, and to bring in a bigger circle to kind of even just to understand it, just to kind of validate, yeah, you're right, that's a really hard, I have no idea what to do in that situation, I think is powerful and important as a group and as a community.
No, you sir. Well, I really appreciate all of the work that went into this and the flexibility that Karen and her team. It's important, and it's part of why we're here is to listen to the community and understand their concerns. So I just really appreciate it. Okay. So I kind of jumped around. So why don't we go back to the central office updates?
So I'd love to share some positive information tonight, so I put together a few slides to share with you. So I didn't share this before because this is a brand new opportunity that Tech the Tech Collaborative provided. I sit on the board at Tech, and at our monthly Tech Superintendent meetings, one of the items that was discussed earlier in the year was, what can we do to celebrate the positivity and energy in our teachers in our districts? So this is the brainchild of the Tech Executive Director, Emily Parks, and she's put a ton of work into it. So this is the first annual Tech Celebrates Teaching, and we were asked as administrators to reach out to principals and district administrators to find out who might they recommend for these awards. And it's not, let me clarify, who might be honored. It's really not an award. It's about people that are doing innovative things at the building level. And so 2 of our educators were nominated. One was nominated by both B.J. Cataldo and Jariel Vernay, and the other one was by by Joan Menard. And I'd like to share, if you don't mind, just the nice things that were said about them. So this is yesterday when we had, let's take a delay there. Oh, isn't it moving? Oh, there we go. Just a delay. So yesterday, the 5 of us went to hear the nice comments about our teammates, and also just we had a lovely breakfast together. So this was what was written by Mr. Vinay about Leslie Diamandis, our school psychologist at the Holliston High School. Leslie Diamandis embodies the spirit of everyone's welcome here through both her professional expertise and her deeply human presence in our schools. A school psychologist by training, Leslie has worked across multiple buildings, bringing clinical skill, cultural responsiveness, and relational care wherever she serves. She is highly competent in her craft and the kind of educator whose presence positively shapes the climate of a school. Professionally, Leslie consistently goes above and beyond. She supports complex student needs, contributes meaningfully to district mental health and SSP initiatives, and strengthens system-level thinking around student support. Whether refining practices at the high school or collaborating with multidisciplinary teams, she shows up as both a skilled clinician and a thoughtful partner. She is continually expanding her learning, deepening her cultural responsiveness, and strengthening her clinical expertise to better serve students and families. What truly sets Leslie apart is her blend of professionalism and generosity. She stays late during crises, steps in when extra support is needed, and offers steady, empathetic care to colleagues. From high school clinical work to helping with school events, she consistently communicates the same message: we are in this together. Leslie builds belonging through consistent action. Students feel safe with her, colleagues feel supported, and families experience her as a responsive and thoughtful, an educator who strengthens culture and models service with both skill and heart. So Leslie was honored for the title of Everyone is Welcome Here, and that was what Mr. Vinay wrote about her. And our second honoree is a middle school person who, as Dr. Jordan pointed out earlier, Carla Kraus, is a phenomenal curriculum specialist interventionist, and she was put into the category, let's see what happens if, innovation at its best. So Dr. Menard wrote the following about Carla Kraus. A true visionary in STEM education, Carla Kraus fundamentally transformed our district's mathematical landscape by building a data-driven middle school intervention system where none previously existed. From pioneering the frameworks used to identify student needs to meticulously tracking progress across district systems, she has ensured that every learner is seen and supported. Carla's leadership extends far beyond the classroom. She has been the architect of our shift toward a rigorous 8th grade algebra curriculum and currently heads the middle school science curriculum review centered on DESE's Implement Guide. Through her tireless collaboration with the district curriculum team, she has bridged gaps in vertical and horizontal alignment, creating a seamless and high-standard STEM pathway for all students. So again, she was honored for Let's See What Happens If, and I will show you a few other pictures. And there were also some raffles given out after breakfast, and after I feel like Carla said right away, "Oh, I never win raffles." Well, Carla she won the nicest raffle in the place, so that was another benefit. And just we put up we were all asked to also talk about an individual in our lives, an educator that was inspiring to us, and then we had to put up cards about that. And there are our two honorees together, so I'll be sharing this out to staff tomorrow, and it will end up in the community newsletter. But we don't often get to see all this positive things happening behind the scenes, and next year they'll have another one, and we'll be honoring some other individuals at HPS through tech.
Where's your photo shoot? I know.
Oh, so the event was held at the Grazina, is it Grazina? Grazina event space in Norwood. It's a lovely place. They do catering and events there, and we hold some of our meetings there for tech as well. And the food is phenomenal. And she does a ton of gluten-free. Every time I walk in now, she'll say, I know you're gluten-free, we have this. So thank you for, yeah, it was very nice. It was.
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. As Dr. Kuska said, we are deep in curriculum review still. So Carla is running the RAMS curriculum review for science, and we are looking at piloting different resources. Krista Marino is also running a curriculum review for Placentino Science, and we're deciding on ones that we are piloting at Placentino. ELA teachers, Jenny Mann they're not the teachers, they're the curriculum specialists. Jenny Mann and Caitlin Kinsky are working very closely with the curriculum review team as well as School Kid, who's phenomenal. Just to let you guys know, I did apply for a PRISM continuation grant, which is for $197,500. So hopefully we get that to talk to Mr. Alfred's grant funds. So that would help definitely for implementation of a resource next year, which would be a huge windfall again for Holliston. And I did attend the high school concert last night. Just wanted to do a huge shout out to Sean Bilodeau and Dan Rice. Had some really phenomenal music and choral selections, so thanks to them. And Ida Pappas for helping them out. I am done.
I am going to just provide a little bit of an update on kind of the MSBA process and our feasibility study. If we have a presentation I can. Susan, if you're able to pull it up.
I just need too many tabs. Just a second.
So the resource, as Susan's pulling it up, it's meant to be kind of a standalone resource, something that we can also just kind of put this together and post this online, so just kind of walk families and community members through that process. I'm hoping to kind of expand upon this based off of your feedback and others as we kind of get closer and closer to town meeting, but wanted to have something just kind of explains what a feasibility study is and something that gives you all some talking points to go off with. As Dan had indicated, we are for capital pursuing the $2.5 million at Maytown meeting. I know it's a large amount of money. We have seen anywhere from about 1.7 to 2.5 that were based off of 24 assessments. We are starting to see the October of this year feasibility studies that were completed and the costs of those, and some of the recent requests that are around $3 million. So I think now is the prime time to go after the funding and accelerate this process as best we can. I think that's also the recommendation of the MSBA as well. As far as timing, as far as going after this May versus the fall, what May does is that we start our eligibility period on June 1, and that gives the MSBA the funding that they need to start the process. If we start our eligibility period on June 1 and we are relying on our feasibility study in the fall, we are getting kind of a different response and a different speed and pace from the MSBA as far as what we're going to do. So we are looking at a delayed timeline for the completion of that. And if you are watching construction costs, they are rising. To our second slide. So what is the MSBA? This is the Massachusetts School Building Authority. This is a pretty rigorous process. I think those who have been in the district or associated or connected with the school committee for a long time, we've been kind of on and off connected to MSBA core applications over the last decade. And these are substantive documents to put together. They're substantive visits that they come out to do. This is a commitment, a multi-year commitment that we've gone through. We've already gone through a whole decade of trying to push for this, and we're still 5 to 7 years away from an actual high school at this point even. So this is a large process that we go through. So why a feasibility study? This is, sorry, so.
I don't know why. There's a delay for some reason.
A little delay?
Yeah.
So why a feasibility study? It's Gamma. Dan? It's Gamma's fault. All right.
It might be.
Yep. No. So if I'm joking with Dan, is Dan showed Gamma last week as an AI tool for presentation building, and I'm giving it a go. So you might see a couple and might get some teases from some of you on. It's even like AI's got a common look and a common language. So
we pay for this one?
This is free.
It doesn't have the Made by Gamma logo.
Well, I did a thing.
Well, it's not Canvas, so you know.
I took Gamma. I then dumped them into Google, into Slides, and then I used the AI in Slides to customize it.
AI on AI, wow.
I know, right? Some type of rule was broken there.
Do we even need a budget director?
All right, so thanks, Dan. All right, why a feasibility study? So assess the problem. This is part of it. This is a complicated process to do this. Explore all options. So like really having significant professionals to kind of literally look at this process, and then recommend a solution. This is the proof. When we're looking at potentially a $300 million plus project, or if we're going the Lexington route.
No.
Don't mention
Okay.
it.
All right. Just tried. I was looking for a really beautiful central office. But we are looking at a large sum of money, and the MSBA and the state requires kind of this level of proof that this is something that can be done and to what capacity it can be done. And this is what the process that does that. It's like you have to go back and then go forward.
Yeah, you almost have to go twice.
So this is kind of walks you through just what the group from the MSBA, the feasibility study actually does. Starts with kind of your larger program assessment. What type of building are we looking at as far as our current building evaluation, the structure of it? Are we looking at a whole brand new building, a renovation? What's physically possible with there? This is where they kind of give you kind of the options. Option analysis might mean, all right, what does it require to do a renovation on the location we are? What does it have to build a whole new building on the physical, the site? So whether it's on the actual address location, on the physical building site, on a football field, on a space here across the street, they start looking at other locations in town as far as doing that site analysis. You get the initial drawings, the schematic design that you would have, and then they do some of the cost estimating for you, so that gives the town a good sense of what the actual cost is going to be. Well, that's the trick.
Yeah.
It does cost a lot. So why does it cost what it does? You are looking at significant, specialists. I just think about the own architect that we're using on my own house, and what we're paying for them for that just seems outrageous. It's an expensive thing to do. As far as one, we do have our own OPM, owners project manager, and that person kind of is the expert. It's not me that you've assigned as the expert on building us a new high school. I know nothing about building a new high school, so this is hiring a professional to be able to do that and take us through that process. The designer and architect costs that you have, schematic design, building, site analysis, educational programming. This is where you are bringing actually your space design. This is where they go through almost like a strategic plan with the community to kind of assess what do you want in your educational programming, what do you want spaces to look like, what are you trying to get out of your high school, and then putting that into kind of that educational design that they have. And then once you have this full kind of captured vision of what this school is and the schematic design for it, you get at your cost estimations. All right, this is kind of, you know, a breakdown based off of what the MSBA does with the percentages of the cost, but how that $2.5 million would be used. This kind of gives you a sense that the majority of it is going to that architect and designer fee, and then to kind of any kind of legal market contingencies that we have kind of built into that. So that gives you kind of a sense of our dollar amount that's there. You know, it's a significant process. I know I've heard from some community members that say $2.5 million to kind of walk around the site and look at a couple things and do a couple drawings. Like, that's not what you're getting. You're getting an 18-month process with professionals. So.
Still well-paid professionals.
Well-paid professionals.
It could be 12
And they're still walking around.
Yes, 12 to 18 months. Yeah. So, you know, I alluded to this a little bit at the beginning as far as even the timing of like when we go for funding for the feasibility study, whether it's the spring or whether it's the fall. We have two cracks at this, two bites of this apple, the spring and the fall. If we do not get the funding that we need in the fall, we have the potential of losing our place in line of this and kind of giving up where we are with the MSBA. This might start us over in a 10-year process, might look at something that just really significantly slows down that process, further deterioration, emergency repair that we need to do on the current high school that we have, all the while that we have rising construction costs that are going on at the same time.
And David, to be clear to the community, I don't know the exact date, you probably do. February is when we have to have the money approved of 2027, correct?
Off the top of my head, I know that like our only, unless we can go to some kind of emergency meeting, our two opportunities are the May town meeting, the fall town meeting, and then we have until like it is somewhere around that period.
It's a 270-day window.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really important that May is the first opportunity to.
May 11th, though, is when we need that.
I just want to be obvious here, but if October happens, you have November, Thanksgiving, December, holidays, January, and basically no time to have a special town meeting to do.
Well, we know how much the town likes special town meeting.
That also costs more money, so May 11th, important.
David, could we just go back to 6, the breaking down the 2.5?
Yep.
If we don't use all of the 2.5, is it possible we don't use it all? Right.
Yeah, there's a possibility we don't use all of the 2.5. So that just sits similar to any capital that we have, sits in the capital account, and then that either gets, the town can decide however they want to use that, whether we roll that back into the town or whether that sits there just as an offset of, we know that a huge amount that the actual MSBA, the entirety of the Hossack High School build will be. Ultimately, the reimbursement is on the back end at the completion of the project.
Understood. Thank you.
Is there a guarantee to a payback, or is it like the payback from MSBA? It's up to 50%.
50, yeah, we're going to be approximately 50% based off of our town. I mean, there's a range that they give for all of Massachusetts, depending on the type of community, but we're approximately 50%.
And that 50% of the feasibility would be rolled into the full, so it would come back later.
But just one caveat there, it is gross 50% of MSBA approved spending. So for the study, 50%, or whatever the number actually comes out to be, around 50%. But if we are, and I don't think we are, you put in a pool, which the MSBA does not pay for, that is 100% then paid for by the town. So when you then look at your net reimbursement rate, and there will be things that we'll have in there, not a pool, but other things.
We're not talking about pools tonight, Dan.
Okay, like tennis courts.
Keith Boudet gave us this example. He said with the Franklin High School, they might have gone bigger on some area, like the auditorium, in there, and that there were portions of that they wouldn't cover. Right.
And so that we get 100%. So then you look at our net reimbursement, and we're probably looking at a few percentage points lower.
So decisions we make outside of the MSBA, I guess, recommendation will be on our own.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily even the recommendation. It's just what their formula says that they pay for. What size classroom? How many seats in the auditorium? what kind of, what things in the gym, there are going to be decisions. I think the community might want certain things that they don't reimburse for, they don't reimburse for as much. And
my understanding is also that the central office would not be part of that either. That's what I've been told.
It would not be.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's in addition to. So
I mean, there are a lot of things that come in fact. So it is based off of our student population. Our current auditorium and field house are larger than what would the MSBA would build based off our student population. So I know Mr. Boudet in past years has spoken to that through this kind of conversation and process, is that a possible scenario could be some type of construction that preserves our auditorium and field house, or that we get the high school, but the town decides, well, we want to somehow maintain this building or a portion of this building for community use. There's just all that's going to come out in these next 5 to 7 years. Okay. And really that'll come out actually in the next 12 to 18 months. Yeah.
One of the biggest non-reimbursed costs that we will have, and we will not have any choice about it, is septic, or in whatever waste treatment.
Or we have sewers by then.
Those are downtown sewers. We're uptown.
Yeah, we'll bring it uptown.
Anyway, that is going to be a huge cost. That'll probably be the biggest sort of non-reimbursed cost.
Actually, it's good. Who makes decisions on whether a pool goes in, or an auditorium, Dr. Jordan, or track, or tennis courts?
If somebody in the town side or a community member proposes that, then that would have to be taken up at town meeting, and it would be made very clear that would be in addition to. So,
my understanding is this is a very transparent process. I think that there are different report out points from the SBC, the School Building Committee. I think that it's discussed and solidified good ideas and whatever, and then things are presented. And my understanding is there are multiple voting points by citizens as they go through as this being communicated. So I think that there is and this is part of the value of the MSBA taking us through this, is they take you through so that it's an incredibly transparent process for the community as we build this high school.
And they also come and present at times as well. When I was building projects in Weymouth and Hanover, they'll come and do some of that communication.
I think it's important to note, too, I've had a number of people I've told to put the date of town meeting in their calendars and say, I thought this was a done deal, that, like you just said, there are many votes and many steps. So even if you vote on May 11th, which hopefully the community will come out to do, we're going to ask you to come vote many more times. So just kind of keep that on the community's radar.
And even if we think it's going to pass on May 11th, just having more people come out and show more support, demonstrate that all that's the MSBA and our seriousness is important.
Good dovetail. Hillary and I met with Tina last week, part of the working group. We discussed the school building committee, which, to remind the school while we are incredibly excited for the high school, incredibly, the high school is a town process, and the school building committee, will be created, will be the governing authority for the school building, in conjunction, obviously, with honestly every board and committee in this town, as well as community member. We had met last week to discuss the construct of the school building committee. So we are marching forward in April. Select board has designated the authority to designate the school building committee. There are statutory roles that are predefined roles that need to be part of it. Superintendent's one of them. Hillary, you probably know these better. One school committee member. Bunch of others.
There's several, yes.
And the finance and operations person on the
Yes.
school side is typically, it would be the facilities person, typically James Keystone.
Yep. So there's a number, and then there's a number of at-large roles we can define. So as part of the working group, we settled between 4 to 5. And again, that's not written in stone, so for the record, we're still working through that. With the process being, we want to make sure we have enough voting members. So a lot of the statutory roles will be town employees. We understand at this point town employees typically do not have a voting role, so we want to make sure we have enough voting roles as part of the school building committee. The select board has indicated on 4/6 will be a conversation on that, where we are tasked with, and we're, again, not completely solidified, but a discussion we had was the appointing authority for those at-large roles will likely be split between the select board and the school committee to delegate and nominate those roles, assign those roles. the one thing we're working on with Tina between the select board and then this committee, which we'll probably have to discuss in the April 9th meeting, is what type of delegate appointee would we be looking for? What's the construct, the background that we're looking for as we think through who should be appointed? Our goal is, before Maytown meeting, to have this solidified. Again, to send another message, additional message to MSBA that we got the funding, we got a school building committee, we're on a roll. Hillary, anything to add from our conversation with
Well, as we said in the last school meeting, school committee meeting, there will be a website.
I was going to give an update in communications. I fell behind this week, but yes, there will be. And his deck will be the first thing added.
Yeah, there's not a lot to share ahead of the May 11th town vote, but certainly when we identify the roles that are going to be on the school building committee, that will be on there.
Yep. And I'll just give the update here. Communications, we'll have a meeting. Chris Mayo, Dan's still here. Dan, we're gonna set up the website. This will probably be one of the first things because Dr. Joy, this is in a great presentation. Covers everything. So as a preamble to town meeting, start with this, and then there'll be more information, obviously, as the school building committee set up. That'll become the website in which they communicate. And we'll have that link between the school district website and the town website. Incredibly excited.
Yeah.
All right. My turn. So this is an answer section for you. Who's excited that Jason Tatum has returned to the Celtics? Anybody here excited? More than excited? So I have something more exciting than that to share with you. So we have on April 7th, our outstanding unified basketball team at the middle school will be having an extra game because WBZ is coming to do a story on our unified team. That is far more exciting than Jason joining the Celtics. And I hope that I get to see all of you there at the middle school at 3:20. So your pen should be out. You should be writing right now, April 7th, 3:20. I'll send you a notice to remind you that they'll be joining to write a lovely story about what happens, and we'll see it on TV, and we'll figure out when that's going to be. But I really hope you'll come and join us for the event.
And I think they'll have, is it Medfield that's playing?
Medfield will be coming, excuse me for not adding that in. It will be a home game against Medfield. And WBZ News will be here, and what their idea is that they like to highlight the inclusivity and kindness that radiates from our unified team. What a nice thing. So I hope you'll join us and celebrate our team, which works incredibly hard. I was over in Hopkinton last week watching the game. Took some great pictures of the kids and their up-in-the-air pictures as they are. But we'll send you some more information out. Right now, we're in a save-the-date permission slip stage. But I really had to share that with you. So if Jason goes away, I don't care. We just want our unified team out on the floor and have the opportunity to see them on Channel 4. So that was my first good news thing for the night.
If you can also share when you find out when exactly it'll be aired, that would be great.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes. And then the other thing just to share, it's not exciting like Jason or our unified basketball team, but it's to update the committee that we have begun the process of the school monitoring review with the Department of Education. And we met, Dr. Cusker and I met this week, sorry, the weeks are flying together. It's this week to start the process and all of the different steps that we have to do. I will be having a meeting with them again next week, myself, and then from that point on, they'll be going through all the documentation that was submitted last year that's been sitting in the portal. And then the most important thing is the week of June 1st, they will be coming on site here in the district. They'll be for about 2 days to go through, do walkthroughs of the buildings, look at several things, interview folks, whether it might be somebody from CPAC, teachers, principals, and so forth. They might ask to meet with the chair of the school committee. I don't know yet. That wasn't one of the names on the list yet. But all my other districts, somebody from the school committee has always met with the team that comes to visit. So I'll keep you apprised of that. What's in the portal for the department looks pretty solid, but they're going to let us know if anything is missing because of the transition in directors. Most of it was there, so I didn't have to add anything else. They're also emphasizing we have a smaller component on the education piece and a bigger emphasis on the civil rights piece. So that's where they're looking at us this year, and then this level of review won't happen again for 6 years after this, just to give you some insight about next steps. But I want to keep everybody up to date on what's happening here as they come into the district, and I'll continue to let you know as I talk with them and eventually when they're going to be here. And that is it for this week. Put that date in your books. And buy your shirts in advance, and you'll look great as we sit together.
Thank you. Okay, we can move on to reports from subcommittees. So communications?
Yeah, my brief update.
Yeah, you already did.
Schedule next week.
Policy?
Nothing.
Budget? You're all set.
We're not doing enough.
You've done enough. And superintendent's tell, we're good. Okay, so I think we are on to our last item. We did receive a request from a student they would like us to send a letter supporting, there's a climate literacy bill. I sent that out earlier. I don't know if anyone had a chance to take a look at it. Let me see if I can pull it up. Essentially, it
Do you want it on the screen?
Sure. Yeah, so that's an example of the letter. They're looking for, it's House Bill 560 and 391. And it's basically, sorry, still trying to pull it. Where's the summary? It's legislation that would require DESE to create a curriculum framework around interdisciplinary climate literacy, and it establishes a trust fund and an advisory committee to support that work. So I don't know if anyone.
I just had a question on the trust, and
Yeah.
I may not have the answers, but I think it'd be prudent of us to think everything, what's the right thing to do, but also what could potentially impact the budget and be mindful of both.
Mm-hmm.
It was not clear the trust fund how it would fund this curriculum, and without that, it's hard to totally behind the effort, but I think we have to be careful of what we sign up for if we're not fully sure how it will be funded.
I think you'd be, supporting the potential of this, but yes, it could definitely be a DESE unfunded mandate, and that could be a concern as well.
Any suggestions on how to, do we want to send a modified version of this letter saying we support the
philosophical?
Yeah, right.
We could say we support it, but respectfully request funding for its implementation, right? We can add something.
But the bill passing doesn't automatically also mean that we have to partake, right?
No, I think it would.
DESE would have, does it I didn't get that far, but does this mandate DESE to implement it, or now it gives authority to DESE to implement
It says to achieve, promote, and support the instruction of interdisciplinary climate literacy education for districts across the Commonwealth.
I don't think that means if it passes, we're necessarily.
And what does that mean for teachers in terms of, extra training and professional development and implementing some of this stuff into the curriculum?
It would likely have to be brought into a curriculum review process and how it would be embedded as well. So there's a lot of layers to that. One is where if there's no funding, I mean, conceptually supporting it is a good thing, but then what happens later is unknown until we got to that point. Because then it would be what grade levels are going to be having it. Are there going to be specific standards?
391, right? Okay, why don't we look at this, because I think there is something in here for funding. To achieve, promote, and support the instruction of interdisciplinary climate literacy education for K through 12 public school students in districts across the Commonwealth, there shall be established and set up on the books of the Commonwealth a separate fund to be known as the Interdisciplinary Climate Literacy Trust Fund. There shall be credit to the fund, 1, revenue from appropriations and other money authorized by the general court and specifically designated to be credited to the fund, 2, funds from public and private sources such as gifts, grants, donations to further interdisciplinary climate literacy foundation and interest. I mean, there's a component.
Well, so what they'll do is the initial, they'll put money in initially, it'll be put out there, and then it will be pulled away in subsequent years. And
We could say in our support letter, and continued funding support. We put something in there with that, but I feel like the Senate bill itself, 391, includes a funding portion.
it includes a funding mechanism should they so choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think.
But I mean, that's everything. I mean, I think.
I think.
My guess is somehow this would probably, wouldn't this be implemented in the form of grants or something like that to get districts started? I mean,
It's unknown because often, as you know, there's been a lot of DESI recommendations, and then they dial, if they don't fund it, they just recommend it. So then it'll be up to the individual local
it doesn't
district.
sound like there's anything
I don't
that
think
passes. It forces us.
No, I don't think it does. I think you're just saying you're in support of it, the potential.
As long as there's anything here that alludes to a mandate that we can't disengage with.
Correct. I don't hear anything that sort of.
I'm not reading anything either, so I think.
It talks about purchasing, like the fund would be used to purchase distribution and implementation of curricular materials, professional development training, and then opportunities for districts and stakeholders to assess and share evidence-based practices. So
I'm in support. We want to vote on this letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Are we okay with the wording in the proposed template?
Yeah, I mean, the funding is going to be on a year-to-year basis. So, like, if they don't fund it, we want to send another letter advocating for that. I think that would be the time to do it, rather than say, and for perpetuity funded. So.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion. I can, take care of the letter and send it on.
I would like to thank the student or students who submitted this. It's an awesome, something we should encourage, and yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve the climate ed bill letter of support to our state representative and senator as written and with any minor non-substantive edits by the chair before sending.
Second.
All in favor? And just to thank it, it's Angaj Pillai. Apologize if I didn't get the pronunciation right, but they're working with the Mass Audubon statewide youth climate leadership program. So it's great that we have youth that are caring about our world and our climate. So thank you.
And sir, you'll let them know we vote.
Yes. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. Yes. Okay. Let's see. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I think that's it. Right. Okay. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor.
All in favor. Great. Good night, Holliston. Thank you.